A dosimeter is a device for measuring exposure to ionizing radiation. A personal dosimeter measures ionizing radiation absorbed by a person. Early types of dosimeters contained elements that reacted chemically to radiation, similar to the way a camera's film reacts to being exposed to light. These types of dosimeters are referred to as thermoluminescent dosimeters, or TLDs for short. When developed, the TLD's element indicates how much radiation was absorbed over a given period of time. The TLD's film-like element must be replaced each time radiation exposure is measured. An electronic personal dosimeter, or E.P.D, contains an inert gas suspended in an airtight tube. When exposed to ionizing radiation, the gas takes on an electrical charge. The charge is measured electronically to indicate the level of radiation exposure. Unlike the TLD, the gas does not need to be replaced each time exposure is measured. Also unlike the TLD, the amount of exposure is available in real time. In the Fallout universe, the E.P.D can be seen worn by Vault-Tec personnel before the beginning of the Great War. After the war, they can be seen worn by various medical and technical personnel throughout the Commonwealth. Building a prop version of the E.P.D is fairly straightforward, using simple tools and easy-to-find parts. There are three sub-assemblies that make up the E.P.D: the body, the sensor probe, and the dial. For this project, you'll need some 1x3 inch dimension lumber, a 1-inch dowel, a 38mm bottle cap, a toggle switch, some clear plastic, some 1mm thick polystyrene or similar plastic, two 1x5/8 inch screws, and 6 5/8 inch screws, and the printed dial template. The raw stock for the body is made from 1x3 inch dimension lumber. The term 1x3 is a bit of a misnomer. The actual measurements are closer to 2.5 inch by 3/4 inches. Despite the actual measurements, the raw stock will be referred to as 1x3 in this tutorial. Measure and cut a piece of 1x3 dimension lumber 3.5 inches in length. The sensor probe is cut from 1-inch dowel. Measure and cut the dowel to 3.5 inches in length. This is the same length as the body. The dial may be surface mounted to the body, but if available, use a 1 5/8 inch Forstner bit or paddle bit to make a shallow counterbore along the center line of the body, about 1 3/8 inches from one end of the body. Once this counterbore is drilled, this end will now be referred to as the top. The counterbore should be about 1/8 to 3/16 inches deep, depending on the thickness of the bottle cap you selected. The toggle switch mounts from the rear of the body. Start by boring a 1/8 inch or smaller pilot hole through the body along the center line about 5/8 inches from the bottom edge. This measurement may vary depending on the exact toggle switch you purchase. From the rear of the body, use a 3/4 inch Forstner bit or paddle bit to drill a counterbore almost completely through the body, about 5/8 inches deep. Be very careful not to drill completely through the body. From the front side of the body, drill a hole large enough for the stem of the switch you selected. In this example, the drill used was a 1/4 inch bit. From the front of the body, mark and pilot blind holes in each of the 4 corners for the 5/8 inch screws. Be sure not to drill all the way through the body. The E.P.D clips to the pocket of the wearer's lab coat. If available, one option is to repurpose the clip from an old tape measure. Simply drill a pilot hole along the center line of the rear body and use a small wood screw to hold the clip in place. If an old clip is not available, one can also be fabricated from scratch using a wire hanger. To accommodate a wire hanger clip, drill two 1/4 inch blind holes about 1/2 inch from the top edge on the rear of the body. These holes should be about 1/2 inch deep. Be careful not to drill all the way through the body. It's difficult to put into words exactly how to bend the wire hanger, so follow the pictures as close as possible. Keep in mind that it is difficult to bend short pieces of wire, so cut the excess wire off after bending. On a lathe, cut a shallow chamfer at each end of the dowel. While still on the lathe, make a shallow cut 1 inch from one end of the dowel. Sand the probe smooth. There are 5 shallow counterbores visible on the probe. Mark the location of the counterbores on the dowel. Use a 1/2 inch Forstner bit or similar to drill 3/16 inch deep counterbores. The probe is held firmly to the body by 2 1 5/8 inch long screws. Drill 2 pilot holes through the probe and into the side of the body. Drilling the pilot through the counterbores will hide the screw heads after final assembly. Sand off any burrs created while drilling. Cut out 2 dial faces from the printed template. Cut out the bell-shaped section of one of the faces to serve as the top dial. Cut a piece of thick cardboard the same shape or slightly smaller than the top dial. Using contact cement, glue the 2 templates together with a cardboard sandwiched in between. The finished dial face should fit into the 35mm cap. Trim if needed, then glue in place with contact cement. Cut a piece of clear plastic slightly larger than the cap. Apply contact cement to the rim of the cap. Apply contact cement sparingly to the edge of the clear plastic. When the contact cement is set up, press the clear plastic firmly into place on the cap. The dial is now finished. Sand off any burrs or splinters left over from cutting and drilling. Pay particular attention to the end grain. Use a filler if necessary to ensure a smooth finish. Prime the body and finish sand with 200 grit paper. The sample for this tutorial was already painted, so priming wasn't necessary. Allow any primer or sealer to cure completely and then coat with glossy yellow paint. Seal and sand the sensor probe. Coat with a metallic silver paint. Paint the heads of the 1 5/8 inch screws used for securing the probe to the body. When all the paint has sufficiently cured, it's time for final assembly. here's the completed E.P.D. We're just going to slip it on our pocket. Get it adjusted, and there we go. We're ready for the wasteland. We're ready for the wasteland.